Arguably one of my favorite games of all time, Diablo 2 was released in 2000 after the success of the first game. Where the first game took place entirely within a single town, Diablo 2 takes the player all over the world of Sanctuary as they chase after Diablo, from the scorching deserts of Lut Gholein to the festering swamps of Kurast. Overall, the game is a massive improvement over the first, with many quality-of-life improvements such as sprinting, assigning spells to hotkeys, and tying the player's skill progression to several tech trees instead of picking them up as tomes. On release, there were 5 playable classes, with the Rogue and Sorcerer returning as the Amazon and Sorceress, and the inclusion of the Barbarian, Paladin, and Necromancer. The game would also receive an expansion in the form of Lord of Destruction, which added an additional 2 classes in the Assassin and Druid and the game's 5th and final act. Overall, the game increases the scope of the world and presents a story of heroes venturing into the East to chase an all-consuming corruption. In a time before creation, there was Anu. It was the sum of all things good, evil, physical, and mystical, and slept within a single perfect pearl. In its dreaming state, Anu pondered its very existence, and sought to become a perfect being by casting off its darker aspects. All elements of discord and evil that were removed from Anu would coalesce into a great 7-headed dragon known as Tathamet. Tathamet would writhe within the pearl, bound to it just as much as Anu was, and the 2 primal titans would war for countless aeons. Neither entity would gain an advantage over the other, and shadow and light clashed for time unknowable. At long last, both Anu and Tathamet had expended all of their energy, and with one final blow, both were vanquished. Their death throes were cataclysmic, and the erupting energies gave birth to the material universe. Like maggots festering on a corpse, demons arose from the flesh of the fallen dragon. Tathamet's 7 heads would fall from the body and become the incarnations of evil, known as the Great Evils. The greatest of his heads became the Prime Evils, Mephisto, the Lord of Hatred, Baal, Lord of Destruction, and Diablo, Lord of Terror. The remaining heads became the Lesser Evils, encompassing Andariel, the Maiden of Anguish, Duriel, the Lord of Pain, Asmodan, the Lord of Sin, and Belial, the Lord of Lies. Although they are considered to be the Lesser Evils, they are no less powerful than the 3 Prime Evils. Instead, the Prime Evils consider themselves to be brothers of one another, with Mephisto being the eldest and Diablo the youngest. Still, each of the Great Evils rarely get along and are just as likely to betray each other as they are to cooperate with one another. Each has their own place in hell carved out that they have molded in their own image, from which all manner of demons spawn from the writhing chaos. The Eye of Anu lay at the center of the universe, surrounded by the wreckage of its violent birth in a land known as Pandemonium. It had infinite power to create worlds or destroy them with just a thought, and both the angels and demons sought it. The Worldstone was powerful enough to prevent attempts at teleportation to it, and even a shard of it held immense power. The Pandemonium Fortress was constructed around the Worldstone, and would exchange hands innumerable times throughout the centuries of conflict. Both sides would use it to create life and worlds in their ideal image, yet each world was flawed and doomed to wither and fade. Such was the course of the eternal conflict, with neither side gaining a true victory over the other. This all changed when a number of agents on both sides tired of the conflict and stole the Worldstone, using it to create a secret haven named Sanctuary. From this world, humanity would be born. It was the burning hells that were first alerted to the existence of Sanctuary when the reckless mages of the Vigerai summoned a demon into their world. Humans were a strange, new creature born of both angel and demon, and so the hells sought to corrupt and bring them into the fold. They opted for a subtle approach, creating a religion intended on converting humanity to their control. A renegade angel named Inarius would create a counter-religion to fight back against the faith of the Triune, which would escalate into the Sin War, a 3-sided war between the heavens, hells, and humanity on Sanctuary. A man by the name of Uldisian forced back both heaven and hell, showing to all the true strength of humanity in his sacrifice. Mephisto would convene with the Angiras Council to decide the fate of Sanctuary. Inarius would be used as a bargaining chip by the angels, as Mephisto offered a truce to the eternal conflict. In exchange for the angel, the burning hells and the high heavens would leave Sanctuary and not interfere in its affairs. as the Primes turned their attention to Sanctuary, hoping to further corrupt humanity to become their path to victory. Azmodan and Belial began to conspire against them. The lesser evils began to believe the prime evils as being afraid to continue the conflict against heaven. This was not helped by the fact that the prime evils had hidden the existence of Sanctuary from the lesser evils. After convincing Andariel and Duriel to join their cause, a civil war broke out in Hell. The three prime evils were banished from the burning hills into Sanctuary, where the lesser evils hoped their presence would force the heavens to act and invade Sanctuary themselves. They would then use the opportunity while the heavens' eyes were turned and march through the diamond gates with little resistance. Such an opportunity would not come to pass. In truth, the lesser evils had been manipulated by Mephisto. He had learned of the Worldstone's presence and planned to corrupt the stone directly, away from the watchful eyes of the angels. However, their presence would be noticed by one member of the Angiras Council, who took it upon himself to stop them. The Archangels of the high heavens are the 5 angels that embody the virtues of Anu. When the Council voted for the fate of Sanctuary, it was Tyrael, Archangel of Justice, that was the deciding vote in favor of its continued existence. When Tyrael learned the prime evils had returned to Sanctuary, he dared not tell his brethren in fear of retribution. Unable to directly intervene, Tyrael instead chose a group of mages across the various mage clans. This order would be known as the Herodrum, and were gifted with 3 shards of the Worldstone attuned to the brothers. Each would be hunted down and bound to a soulstone before being sealed away for eternity. Mephisto was bound to the blue soulstone and entrusted to the Zakarum, who built the temple city of Travincal to guard it. Baal was bound to the yellow soulstone and hidden away in the tombs beneath the deserts of Aranok. Lastly, Diablo was bound to the red soulstone, where he slumbered for a time in Condurus. Now, however, terror walked free once again. The angel Inarius sculpted a great mountain known as Arreat around the Worldstone after the creation of Sanctuary, and when humanity was born, those that settled on the slopes of the mountain were given a sacred charge. They were to protect the Worldstone at all costs from the forces of heaven and hell. These warriors split into 2 distinct groups, with one group leaving to the east and settled in Skosglen. The other group came to be known as barbarians and made the protection of the Worldstone the heart of their culture. They were fierce warriors that earned a reputation for their savagery as they barred the way to Mount Arreat to anyone other than themselves. The barbarians were arranged into a myriad of different clans, and each had their own unique style of culture and combat prowess. With whispers of a malevolent force fleeing east from Tristram, some barbarians left to the south to prepare for war. One of these unnamed wandering barbarians arrived near Tristram, where he joined with others hunting Diablo. The Ascari people, from whom the Sisters of the Sightless Eye split off from, are divided into 2 major castes, owing their origins to the 2 daughters of Philios. One would teach her followers to use the Sightless Eye to see the future and become the Oracle caste. From the other sister would come the Amazon caste. The Amazons are a female-only group of warriors that are trained in combat, and their skills with a bow are only rivaled by the renegade faction of the Sisterhood of the Sightless Eye. Speed and ferocity are valued over raw strength, and in their jungle homeland, all Amazons must learn to hunt, survive, and overcome any obstacle put before them. The Oracle caste, having foreseen long ago of the return of the prime evils, has ensured their society would be an army ready at moment's notice to fight back against the forces of hell. With rumors in the east of the demon within Tristram, one of these Amazons named Cassia would journey to Condurus to chase after Aiden. Long ago, 14 powerful witch covens would come together and disappear into the eastern jungles of Kyrgyzstan. They would become one of the oldest mage clans to exist, known as the Zan Esu, and would begin their hunt for magic in its purest form. Other forms of magic were too unreliable, and so the Zan Esu specialized in elemental magic. Little is known about their clan, other than that they are a female-dominated society similar to the Amazons. Only in whispers are they mentioned, as once every 7 years, the Zan Esu recruit 7-year-old girls into their order and blessing their families with good fortune. These apprentices are then led back to their hidden sanctum and would be trained as new sorceresses. In secret, the Zan Esu would attempt to perfect their craft until such a time that evil returned once more to Sanctuary. With Diablo's awakening in Tristram and subsequent journey eastward, the sorceresses of the Zan Esu ventured out to fight the forces of hell, with one named Ascendra joining the hunt. A hermit named Arreat beheld a vision of an angel named Yarius, who taught the man of resisting evil and embracing the light. Yarius would appoint Arreat to become his prophet, and from him the Zakarum faith would spread. He would lead a number of disciples across Kyrgyzstan, and soon it would become the dominant religion in the region. It was soon decided to spread their faith to the rest of the world, and holy warriors were trained to survive the harsh wilds of far-off lands and protect traveling missionaries. These paladins would later be called to a bloody crusade to wipe out any suspected evil, leading to a rebellion amongst their ranks. Far to the west, the Zakarum warlord Rakis would unite the 9 clans and proclaim his new kingdom as Westmarch. His paladins would become the Knights of Westmarch, and centuries later, they would defend Westmarch from Leoric's armies. Hearing of corruption growing in the east, a paladin named Karthus would leave for Honduras. Within dark crypts and long-forgotten temples, the priests of Rathma work tirelessly to maintain the balance of life and death. Their sole mission is to forever rid Sanctuary of outside influence, as their presence upsets the delicate balance of creation. They are masters of weaving blood, bone, and flesh into armies of walking dead, and use these powers to snuff out any imbalances in the world. These necromancers believe that neither the heavens nor the hells can gain the upper hand of Sanctuary, as too much of either side will lead to the world's destruction. Their actions are likewise neither considered good or evil, but only as necessary to maintaining the balance. Yet to outsiders they are seen as a dark and foreboding presence in Sanctuary, and many towns turn away the members of their order. But with Diablo's return, the necromancers would come out of their isolation to stop the greatest threat to their world. And while many priests were spread thin in Kyrgyzstan and Skosklen, Zul would head west. Following the Mage Clan wars, the Vigerai clan swore off of summoning demons. Yet they could not be trusted, and so a secretive order was established to keep all of the Mage clans in line, and if the need arose, deal with renegades. This order became known as the Vizjaktar, and the mere whisper of their name kept many mages in line. Despite combating mages, these assassins would not rely on magic of their own. Instead, they were trained to be cunning and bring down their targets with a mixture of martial arts, small enchanted devices, and stealth. The Assassin is the first of the 2 classes added in the Lord of Destruction expansion, but are first found in the base game in Kurast as mercenaries for hire. The unnamed player character is sent to investigate the situation on Tristram, before joining with a group of heroes to chase after the Lord of Terror. The warriors that went west from Mount Arreat settled in the lands of Skosklen, where they adopted a much more spiritual lifestyle that emphasized being one with the land. They would live in harmony with the wilds and learn to not only shape nature, but take on its more bestial aspects. Such power they held that even the mage clans dared not enter Skosklen and confront the enigmatic druids. Despite having left the steppes of Arreat long ago, the druids vowed that on the day of the final battle between men and demons, they would return and stand side by side with their barbarian cousins. With Diablo's return, that final battle seems to be at hand, forcing the druids to leave their forest homes and fight back against the forces of hell. One such druid arrives in Honduras, where he joins with others hunting Diablo, and serving as the 2nd class added in the expansion. The remainder of his people would split themselves between defending their homeland and returning once more to the sacred mountain.
So, Marius, at last I find you. should have known you'd travel in disguise. They're always watching. I've been searching for you for a long time, Marius. I was rather beginning to think you didn't want to be found. Oh, forgive me, Tyrael, please. It wasn't my fault. Not your fault. Tell me, Marius, how was it not your fault? The Wanderer. Yes, it was the Wanderer. My days at the Rogue Citadel seem so long ago. I sought refuge from my memories in the company of other outcasts, high in the mountains past the Eastern Gate. Sleep for days at a time. For when I dreamt, the memories would return. Memories of the monastery and the evil which had claimed dreams, memories. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. Evil from my dreams followed me at my heels. How had he found me here? How could this broken shell of a man, barely able to carry the weight of his own sword, be the burning terror which drove me to hide here? He seemed to have demons of his own. He struggled to contain. He was losing. As I watched, I became convinced that I was truly mad. The terror, the destruction, the evil I witnessed. How else could I explain them? Were these the demons from my dream, or were they born within the Wanderer?
Why did I follow him? I don't know. Why do things happen as they do in dreams? All I know is that when he beckoned, I had to follow him. And from that moment, we traveled together east. Always into the east.
The story of Diablo 2 is told from multiple points of view, split between your character, and is a tale told by an old man in a distant asylum. At the end of the world, Marius had hidden himself away, for the events he had witnessed drove him mad. But he could not hide forever, and a disguised Tyrael comes to him asking about what exactly happened. Marius was a vagrant in Eastgate Keep shortly before the monastery was overrun by demons. As one of the only survivors, Marius fled to a hostel in the mountains, where he spent his days fending off sleep and the nightmares of the monastery, and sought chemical comforts. At this same hostel, Aiden would arrive, and his control over Diablo would slip. The hostel would burn to the ground, assaulted by demons that slaughtered all those within. When Aiden finally regained control, the damage had been done, and with a whisper, he beckoned for Marius to follow. Unaware whether he was waking or dreaming, Marius felt compelled to follow him into the east. From Condurus, Aiden went east, and his journey took him through Eastgate Keep. Andariel and Duriel, hoping to gain favor once again with the three brothers, offered to protect Diablo's host. To this end, Andariel invaded Eastgate Keep and sealed off the mountain pass to Arreat to all except for Diablo himself. Many of the Sisters of the Sightless Eye were killed during the siege, but many others were corrupted by Andariel and would serve her. Andariel's corruption would not be content to merely infect the rogues, as the woods themselves would become twisted and haunted by demons. Those that did manage to escape established a small camp in the wilderness. It is the rogue encampment that the party of heroes first arrives in, where they are treated with mistrust and fear. The rogues have had enough troubles as it is, but over time, the party would soon gain their trust. The priestess of the Sisterhood, Akara, requests the player's aid with a problem that has arisen in the Bloodmoor, just outside of the camp. Scouts have reported a dark cave from which all manner of demons and undead have been festering, and fearing that they may attack the camp, Akara asks the player to clear it out. Many of the rogues that have been sent into the cave have not returned, and now zombies and demonic fallen roam the countryside. Inside the cave, more zombies and fallen can be found, along with gargantuan beasts and fallen shaman, who resurrect their slain brethren. Not only that, but a strange, shambling cadaver given the nickname of Corpse Fire stalks the area. Once the cave has been cleared, a gentle light returns to it, and upon returning to Akara, she thanks the player and offers them whatever help she can. Having earned a bit of respect with the rogues for having dealt with the den of evil, Akara points the player in the direction of Kasia, as there are far more important problems to deal with. Not even the living are spared from Andariel's corruption. After Morena returned from battling Diablo in Tristram's Cathedral, she was left haunted by his demonic influence. It ate away at her core, and while some of her closest friends and high members of her order sensed something was amiss, none confronted her about it. Only when she gave herself over to madness did she become a thrall of Andariel, adopting the name of Bloodraven, and launching the attack against her former order. With a heavy heart, Kasia, Morena's former friend, asks you to lay her to rest. Now that the warmth of life has been sapped from her body, Bloodraven has traveled to the burial grounds to raise the dead rogues as an army for Andariel. Death has not slowed her skills, but instead sharpening them with even deadlier precision. When at last she falls, her soul violently leaves her body, sending out waves of lightning and release her thralls from undeath. Kasia, impressed by the players, offers the services of the rogues still under her command to assist in taking back Eastgate Keep. The rogues have no idea how to combat the demonic forces prowling the moors and woodland, but Akara has heard of a great Haradrim sage named Deckard Cain who could possibly help. Unfortunately, Tristram is too far away to walk to, but a circle of cairnstones may provide a way to open a portal to the town. The circle lies in the stony field, but the runes on the stones are unreadable. In order to read them, the party must travel through the underground passage and arrive in the dark wood. There, the same runes are inscribed on the bark of the tree of Inifus, which is guarded by the great brute known as Treehead Woodfist. The Guardian is not felled easily, but with his death, the bark can be stripped from the tree in the form of the scroll and returned to Akara to be deciphered. With the scroll in hand and Akara's help, the party returns to the Cairnstones, slaying the fallen Rakanishu. Only by activating the stones in a specific order as inscribed on the scroll does the portal to Tristram open in a brilliant display of power. Tristram is not as it was when we last saw it. After Aiden departed from the town, the demons returned and slaughtered almost everyone in the town. Only Adria and Jillian escaped, with the barmaid traveling east with the witch to find a cure for her increasingly unbearable nightmares. Griswold, the noble blacksmith, rose once more as a fearsome zombie, which the party puts back to rest. Of poor Wirt, his corpse can be found in the northwest of the town, and his wooden leg can be taken and used as a club if one so wishes. The remaining inhabitants lie scattered around the town, their corpses defiled by the Carver demons that have claimed the town, and the skeletons that wandered out from the catacombs. The only survivor remaining is Cain himself, held in a cage at the center of town. Once he is released, he will open a portal back to the rogue encampment, and upon returning, he will thank the player, offering his services of identifying items for free. And so it came to pass that the Countess, who once bathed in the rejuvenating blood of 100 virgins, was buried alive, and her castle in which so many cruel deeds took place fell rapidly into ruin. Rising over the buried dungeons in that god-forsaken wilderness, a solitary tower, like some monument to evil, is all that remains. The Countess's fortune was believed to be divided among the clergy, although some say that more remains unfound, still buried alongside the rotting skulls that bear mute witness to the inhumanity of the human creature. A story written in a moldy tome found in a broken chapel bears more history than first thought. The tower, located in the Black Marsh, hides a sprawling dungeon beneath it, and at its bottom lies the Countess herself, still alive after all this time. The many halls of her private chambers yield the missing gold and treasure, which she has clung to in the crumbling ruins. For all her fire and bloodlust, the immortal queen falls just like any other. The party has fought their way through the dark wood and has reached Eastgate Keep itself, and now that they have arrived, the blacksmith Charcy asks them for a favor. During the battle, Charcy fled from the keep, leaving behind her enchanted smithing hammer. If it can be retrieved, the Sisterhood may yet use it against Andariel. The hammer is the Herodric Malice, first used to smith weapons to hunt down the prime evils, and later entrusted to the Sisterhood of the Sightless Eye. Now it sits in the monastery's forge, guarded by a blue demon named the Smith, who serves as Diablo 2's iteration of the Butcher. Navigating the maze-like keep, fighting through the barracks and slaying the Smith, the party retrieves the hammer and returns it to Charcy, who uses it to begin enchanting the party's equipment. A helpful boon as they seek out Andariel. Once the monastery had been cleaned out of the undead and demonic presence, all that is left is to descend into the monastery's catacombs. Each floor holds dark ones and ghouls meant to wear down the party before they reach the lowest floor. There, sitting on a great throne of bones and a ring of fire, is Andariel. Surrounded by more dark ones, she launches herself at the party, spreading a deadly poison through her scorpion tail-like appendages. In a flurry of steel, fire, and bone, the battle against Andariel would wear on in body and spirit, as the lesser evil conjured painful memories to demoralize the heroes. It would not be enough, and Andariel would be the first of the great evils to fall before our party. With Andariel defeated, the mountain pass is now accessible, and the path into Aranok is open. Warv's caravan sets off east, with Cain and the party accompanying them to chase Diablo. Yet Andariel's corruption would remain over the region, and the Dark Wood would remain a home for the fallen.
Die, maggot!
Andariel embodied emotional and psychological torment. She was a master manipulator that delighted in watching others tear themselves apart through their own inner turmoil, and at one point was a close ally of the Lord of Terror. Despite this, Andariel took great pleasure in seeing Diablo humiliated during the Dark Exile. She almost seems to feed off those around her, maintaining a state of constant ecstasy as those around her suffer. Like the prime evils, Andariel and Duriel consider themselves to be siblings, as mental and physical pain go hand in hand. It is even said that those trapped in Andariel's realm of hell are so overcome with guilt, they seek out Duriel's physical punishment. Although she pledged herself to the lesser evils during the Dark Exile, she grew tired of their endless scheming. When she caught wind of Diablo's resurgence, her and Duriel decided to realign themselves once more with the brothers. Even if Andariel failed to stop the heroes from heading east, she bought Aiden valuable time to cross over the desert.
We traveled east, over the mountains and into the vast deserts of broken lands. As the days passed, my companion told me of himself, that he had once been a great warrior, and that a dark and secret burden now weighed heavily upon him. We traveled for an eternity across that arid wasteland. How long? I couldn't say. And always, a dark cloud seemed to follow us just over the horizon. Finally, the journey ended. We climbed the last bridge. There below us lay our destination. The shining jewel, Loot Lane, with a great sea beyond. We made camp that last night. Perhaps it was the warm desert wind or the sound of the ocean, but for the first time in many weeks, I slept. However, the dreams returned, but these were clearly not my own. I beheld a vision of a great man, the mage, Rasha. You were there too, Tyrael. I remember seeing you in my dream. His brethren had cornered a great demon, Baal, Lord of Destruction, who had been set loose upon the world. They attempted to imprison the demon within a sacred stone. Yet when their attempts failed, Rasha selflessly volunteered to contain the demon within himself, completing the prison. He instructed his brethren to bind him within a tomb, buried under the sand, there to wrestle with the demon for all eternity.
Now you know what I seek, Marius. This is my brother. Sleep now. We set out with the dawn.
The next morning, we walked over the hill toward Loot Lane. I had no idea then of the horrors that were in store for me there.
Marius and Aiden crossed over the mountains and into the deserts of Arreat. Over the course of their journey, Aiden told his companion of his life, and he had once been a great warrior. The journey was long and tiring, but soon the great city of Loot Lane lay in view. That night the two would make camp, and when Marius slept, he dreamt for the first time in weeks. Yet his dreams were not his own. The great mage Rasha led the Haradrim to hunt for Baal with the assistance of the archangel Tyrael. Yet as they hunted down the primeval, their plan would fail, and the soulstone used to contain Baal was shattered. Selflessly, Rasha would sacrifice himself to contain the demon. He would be left behind by the Haradrim and left buried under the sand for all eternity. When Marius awakes, Aiden informs him that now he understands where they are going, as Aiden is looking for his brother. The next morning, the two of them set out for the city. The location of Rasha's tomb would be lost to time, but the region would not stay inactive. The Vigerai held a great military power in the area, but during the Mage Clan Wars, they began to pull back east. The sorcerer Horizon would build a great sanctuary and go into hiding, fearing retribution for his part in enslaving demons. The jewel city of Loot Lane is situated between the kingdoms of Condurus and Westmarch to the west, and Kyrgyzstan beyond the Twin Seas to the east. Built upon an old Vigerai fortress, many foreign armies attempted to claim the city-state, but all of them would fail to breach its walls. In the time since Tristram, strange visitors made their way to the city, one a summoner in search of Horizon's hidden sanctuary, and the other the Dark Wanderer, seeking Baal. Shortly after Aiden's arrival, demons emerge from the sands, and so the ruling sultan, Jaren, closed down the ports and put the city under strict watch. The Haradrim in the area once practiced mummification of their dead, with some being blessed with powerful spells to watch over the tombs after death. Radamant was one such mummy, but he's been acting strange as of late. In the night, Radamant has been kidnapping people in the city and dragging them down into the sewers to repair his own undying flesh. With trouble out in the desert, there are no soldiers that can be spared, and the innkeeper Atma tasks the party with finding Radamant and putting him down, with her husband and son being among the mummy's many victims. Burning skeletons and dried corpses stalk the sewers beneath the town, and fighting through them is no easy feat. As it would turn out, a demon has taken command of the corpse and altered its purpose from protecting its tomb to attempting to revive itself. Once Radamant has been slain once again, the party can turn its attention to matters outside of the city. Even if the party could locate the tomb, the path would be barred to them. The Haradrim created special staves to unlock Rasha's tomb, but they split it into multiple pieces to prevent it from falling to evil. In the dry and haunted corridors of the Halls of the Dead, an odd cube can be uncovered. According to Cain, the artifact is the Haradric Cube, and holds the curious ability to assemble and disassemble items using alchemy and transmutation magic. Past the dry hills within the far oasis, the party enters the Maggot Lair, where all sorts of maggots and scarabs lie in claustrophobic tunnels. The source of the vile spawn is a great sand maggot in the lair's deepest depths, named Coldworm the Burrower. Though more of her brood come to her aid, even her vile poison is not enough to save her, and found on her corpse is the Staff of Kings. Coincidentally, the staff is actually the shaft of the Haradric staff, and only the headpiece will need to be found to finish repairing the key. Upon entering the ruins of the lost city, the sun is swallowed by an eclipse, plunging the world into darkness. The eclipse can be attributed to the demonic snake men of the Claw Viper clan, whom centuries ago served the prime evils. With Diablo's presence in Aranok, the Claw Viper clan once again return to the Valley of Snakes, and within their temple, conduct the ritual to cover the world in shadow. Several hundred years prior, the Claw Vipers attempted a similar ritual, but were defeated then by powers unknown. Simply killing them will not be enough to undo the ritual, and as the party comes across the Tainted Sun altar, they also come across the leader of the Snake Men, a terrible monster by the name of Fangskin. Destroying the altar allows the sun to shine once again, and the magical artifact fueling the ritual can be collected. The amulet of the Viper is of more importance than the Claw Viper realize, as once it is combined with the Staff of Kings, the Haradric staff has been repaired, and the party heads to Drognin looking for answers on the tomb's location. The Viserai sorcerer Drognin has spent many countless hours searching through old texts to find the location of the tomb of Rasha, but his research found something just as interesting. As the palace was built on an old Viserai citadel, perhaps the entrance to Horizon's sanctuary is located somewhere in the palace's cellar. Jaren has been tight-lipped up until this point, cautious about who to trust, but now he can hide the truth no longer. A year prior to Aiden's arrival, a summoner had approached him interested in the history of the palace. When Jaren brought the man down into the cellar, the summoner stayed down there to investigate the ancient seals. Jaren never saw the man again, and when demons came crawling from the sands, the harem guilds requested sanctuary within the palace. Jaren allowed them to stay, but one night their screams could be heard from the depths. Since then, the guards have done their best to force back the demons coming from below, but they fight a losing battle. Venturing down into the palace harem, the party is met with the grisly sight of slain concubines and demons pouring out of the cellar. Pushing their way through, they are met with a shimmering rift through which lies a strange and misshapen realm. This plane is the arcane sanctuary built by Horizon to hide from the prime evils. Free of time, Horizon continued his work, summoning more demons as his slaves. The floating platforms and walkways confound all who manage to find their way into this realm, twisting back and forth to loop back onto each other, allowing one to walk above and below without ever changing their elevation. This impossible space still holds the undead and demons Horizon enthralled, even if the Great Mage himself is long gone. Within the sanctuary, sitting on a pedestal, is Horizon's journal. Within it, he has detailed the events of the past, such as when the Haradrim chased Baal and sealed him within the tomb. Claiming the journal is not so straightforward, as it is in the possession of the summoner across the labyrinthine passageways. When Jazrith left Tristram, he traveled to the east. He would arrive at Lutko Lane and sought his old friend Drognin, but the sorcerer would dismiss his mad ramblings. When Jaren led him into the palace, allowing him to investigate the cellar, Jazrith would open up the portal to the arcane sanctuary, allowing the trapped demons to escape. Adopting the moniker of the Summoner, Jazrith has continued Horizon's work, attempting to enslave demons to his will, but his mind has been long since lost, and now Jazrith is as much a slave to evil as his former companions. He guards Horizon's journal, surrounded by vampires and Khazra, and once the party overpowers him, his soul is claimed by the forces of hell he attempted to control. With the journal in hand, a portal opens before the party, allowing them access to the Canyon of the Magi, where Tal Rasha's tomb lies hidden. In the Canyon of the Magi, there is not one tomb, but 7. Only one of them is the true tomb, with all the others being mere decoys as a last line of defense against the forces of hell. The tombs do not lie empty, as each of the 6 false tombs are filled with undead meant to protect the vast treasures held within. If one was diligent, they could plunder each and every tomb to try and ascertain which is the right one. The work would yield valuable gold and treasure, but perhaps there is a simpler method. When Horizon watched the Haradrim build the tombs, he noticed that they inscribed each one with an esoteric rune. He recorded 6 of these runes in his journal, corresponding to the 6 false tombs. By checking between the entrances in the journal, the true resting place of Tal Rasha can be ascertained. The real tomb is much more expansive than the other 6, descending down further into the earth. With the Haradric staff in hand, the party enters a circular chamber with an orifice on the ground. Placing the staff within the orifice, the chamber will shake and the wall will split open, revealing a drop down into the lowest depths. Dropping down into the revealed hole, a great hulking creature awaits the party. It would have been foolish to assume Andariel acted alone, and defending Bale's prison is her brother, Duriel, the Lord of Pain. Here, the Maggot King waits in ambush for any foolish adventurers that come chasing after Aiden, adding their skeletons to the piles of dead within the tomb. Duriel would be the second of the evils to fall before our heroes, though he would not go down without a brutal fight. But as the party explores further, finding the chamber Tal Rasha was imprisoned, they are instead met with a great angel. This is Tyrael, and he warns the party that Diablo and Bale have already escaped. He asks them to follow the brothers into the swamps of Kurast as his powers are rapidly diminishing, and he will not be able to remain in Sanctuary for long. Returning to Lutgo Lane and speaking to Jaren, the party secures passage across the seas. The ship captain Mashif has been eager to leave the city since the ports were closed, and the party needs only say the word to set sail.
Looking for Bale.
Duriel, also known as the Lord of Pain or the Maggot King, delights himself in physical torment. Inflicting pain and torture are an art form that Duriel is very much intimate with, and he takes great pleasure in ripping the screams from his victims' throats as though he is the maestro to some sort of twisted symphony. Such is his need to cause pain that if nobody is around for him to torture, he will mutilate his own grotesque maggot-like form. The realm of pain is said to be so brutal that the other demons, including Andariel herself, stay away from it lest they join in the cacophony of screams that issue forth from it, even if the music brings them such delight. When Andariel and Duriel pledged their allegiance to the brothers, Duriel sought out Bale. When Bale broke free, he left Duriel behind as punishment for his part in the Dark Exile. Solitude would serve as a fitting punishment for the Lord of Pain, with the only entertainment being any adventurers stupid enough to chase after them.
It is good to see you again, hero.
Once, the most rigid and strict of the angels was the Archangel of Justice, Tyrael. With his blessed sword Eldruin in hand, Tyrael's battles against the Hells were legendary. Yet at all times, Tyrael was fair and just, maintaining a calm and controlled demeanor. Tyrael's own section of the heavens was the courts of justice, where angels air out any issues they have with one another and regain a state of harmony. Tyrael was known as an angel that held integrity and righteousness in high regards until the emergence of Sanctuary. By Tyrael's single vote, it was decided that Sanctuary would continue its existence, and a change was noticed in his behavior since that day. Tyrael saw in humanity the potential for heroism, and has sided with them over the wishes of his other council members. When the Prime Evils first came to Sanctuary, it was Tyrael that assembled the Haradrim and helped them to contain the brothers. Now that they have broken free, Tyrael returns once more to see them stopped.
My companion drew in the dank, cold air of the tomb. It seemed to strengthen him. I stood in the doorway between light and dark. What was left of my sanity implored me not to enter. But that voice was just a whisper now. As we worked our way down, deeper and deeper into the crypt, I began to see a change in my companion. He seemed to be gaining strength. I could hardly see in the gloom, but my companion seemed to know the way. We came at last to a great hall. It was then I realized my companion hadn't been gaining strength. He had been losing what was left of his humanity. He moved with demonic speed, and then you appeared.
Stop! The beast contained herein shall not be set free, not even by you.
Just ensured the doom of this world. You cannot even begin to imagine what you've set in motion this day. Go to the Temple of Light in the eastern city of Karas. There you will find the gate to hell opened before you. You must find the courage to step through that gate, Maris. Take the stone you hold to the Hellforge, where it will be destroyed. Now run. Take the stone and run!
Marius and Aiden entered into the tomb, and as the two of them descended down into the earth, Aiden's will would slip and Diablo's hold would grow. Now it was taking all of Aiden's strength to contain the demon's true power, yet Marius continued to follow him into the main chamber. There, chained to the stone, was what remained of Tal Rasha. Aiden moved to remove the soul stone, but would be interrupted by Tyrael. As the two of them struggled, Baal whispered to Marius, convincing him to remove the stone from his chest. Only too late would Tyrael see what was happening, and he would instruct Marius that he would need to head east into Kurast and destroy the stone. With Baal freed, Tyrael would be outnumbered, and the two brothers would cage the angel inside the tomb. Without any other option, Marius fled from the gloomy passageways below the earth. At the height of the Zakaroom's power, Kurast was the heart of their empire. Built around the temple city of Travincal, Kurast became a cultural and economic center of the world. But within his prison, Mephisto began to corrupt the Zakaroom and turn them to his side. Mephisto seized control of the church, and the city would be brought to its knees. Demons emerged from within Travincal and decimated the citizens of the once great city. Each day the forces of hatred gained more ground, and as they claimed more of the city, a festering jungle swallowed it. Now, the only remaining sanctuary are the docks of Kurast, where warding spells keep the demons at bay. The swamps and jungles dominate the landscape, and the trek to what remains of Kurast is a long and dangerous road. Though the remaining citizens have given up hope of seeing their city returned once again, our party of heroes intends to reclaim these lands from hatred's grasp. Heading out into the spider forest, just outside of the docks, an unusual jade figurine can be found on one of the monsters. Bringing the item to Kane for inspection, he will guide the player to talk to Mashif. As it so happens, the sea captain has been collecting a valuable set of jade figurines, and the one in their possession is the last one that he needs. In gratitude, he will offer a golden bird statuette which came into his possession many years ago. Showing the statuette to Kane, he is reminded of a story of an old sage named Ku-Ilay. Apparently, Ku-Ilay was known for his studies into life and death. He attempted to escape death, but it claimed him all the same, and his ashes were placed into a golden bird. This statuette is the very same one from the tale, and by bringing it to the alchemist Alcor, he will offer to experiment with the ashes and see what he can come up with. After some time, the party returns to him, accepting a potion of life to fortify their vitality. The docks are protected from demons by an enchantment placed over the area by the sorcerer smith Throtley, but the enchantments cannot hold forever, and they have been weakening as of late. If the docks are to remain safe, a holy blade called the Gidbin must be found. The blade is an old relic of the Skatsimi faith, but it lies in the hands of the Zakarum. The blade has since fallen into the hands of the Flayer demons that have claimed the jungles in their name. Deep within the thick wilderness, they have erected a village with the blade placed up on an altar. Upon trying to take the Gidbin, a rat man will quickly take it and use it to attack the party. Picking the blade up off his corpse, the party takes the blade to the mage Ormus. The Tan clan he is a member of practices the old rituals of the Skatsimi, and using the blade, the enchantments over the docks are repaired. When Mephisto corrupted the Zakarum, the Pope-like Kay Hagan proved to be resistant to his will. The Kay Hagan Kaleem would be torn apart by his faithful, and the pieces of his corpse were scattered. Kaleem's spirit would live on, however, with the sole intent of stopping the Lord of Hatred. By hunting down the relics of Kaleem, the party can craft a weapon that can expose Mephisto, leaving him vulnerable. The first of these relics, Kaleem's Eye, lives in the clutches of Cesark the Burning, deep within the tunnels of the Spider Cavern. Placing the eye within the Herodric Cube for safekeeping, the party presses on into the Flayer jungle. There within, the Flayer village lies, along with the Gidbin needed to reinforce the dock's defenses. The Flayer dungeon holds Kaleem's brain, held onto tightly by the witch doctor and Dugu. Placing it alongside Kaleem's eye, the party makes the long, slow march to Travincal. Upon arriving in what remains of Kurast, the city is overrun with demons and monsters, and where once the poorest of its citizens huddled in communal huts, now vile buzzards and hellish apes lurk in the shadows. The remaining citizens also take up arms against the party, their minds bent to Mephisto's will. Deeper in, a once grand bazaar leads to the upper districts. Great temples are built around these sections of the city, with a causeway leading to Travincal and the Temple of Light. The party instead heads down into the sewers where the undead have been dumped and left to be forgotten. They begin searching through these vast canals for the entrance to a secret chamber opened with the pull of a lever. Down in this chamber, a large pool holds monstrous tentacled horrors that emerge from the murky waters. They are only the Guardians, and after dealing away with them, the chest at the other side of the chamber holds Kaleem's heart. The sage Lam Essen studied the old faiths of the Skatsimi, as well as the effects the primevals had on Sanctuary. This information would be invaluable in the fight to combat the three brothers, but the Zakarum believed the tome was filled with heretical lies, and the book was lost. Of the two great structures in the Kurast Bazaar, the ruined temple is where the lost tome now lies, and while the temple's underground passageways are a degree smaller than the others in the city, it is no less dangerous. Some of the corrupted rogues of Eastgate Keep have made their way here, now fueled by demonic corruption. These corrupted rogues hide out within the ruined temple, and battle-maid Serena guards the tome fiercely against the forces that oppose the primevals. With her death and the tome claimed by the party, they hand it over to Alcor so that he may study its texts for any useful information. Passing over the causeway into Travincal, the party is confronted by the High Council of the Zakarum. Once, the High Council was charged with Mephisto's containment, but over the generations they've been made into a mockery of their faith. Of the 6 council members, the ones guarding the entrance to the Temple of Light are Ismail Vilehand, Tuark Icefist, and Galeb Flamefinger. The council members were transformed into powerful demons when Mephisto manipulated them into shattering his soulstone into 7 pieces. Each council member would pierce their hand with a shard, with the largest given to the new Khagan, Sonkakor. Sonkakor would construct a blood-red compelling orb to solidify Mephisto's control over the minds of the priesthood. As one of the council members held onto Khalim's flail, the party combined it with the other relics in the Herodric Cube, creating Khalim's will. This weapon contains the remaining spirit of the former Khagan, and upon smashing Mephisto's compelling orb, the remaining Zakarum are freed of his control. The vast tunnels beneath the Tunnel of Light, which once served as Mephisto's prison, has been twisted and defiled. Countless offerings to Mephisto line the corridors, those that undertook pilgrimage to the once holy city and were killed as sacrifices to the Lord of Hatred. The remaining council members, Wyan Voidbringer, Maffer Dragonhand, and Brem Sparkfist guard the way to Mephisto's chamber, but they would fall all the same. Opening the doors to Mephisto's prison, Sonkakor's body has been stretched and twisted into Mephisto's vessel. Within a pool of blood is a hellish red portal, and Diablo and Baal are nowhere to be found. Mephisto would unleash his power against the party, launching lightning, poison, and a deadly skull missile. When he is slain by the party, the blue soulstone is ripped from Sonkakor's corpse, and a bridge of skulls and bone emerges from the blood, allowing access to the infernal gate. Through there, Diablo has escaped back into the burning hells.
You're too late.
Mephisto, the Lord of Hatred, is the eldest of the 3 brothers. Perhaps the most cunning of all the great evils, Mephisto is an expert in playing the other evils against each other for his own ends. His daughter Lilith would rebel against him and birth humanity, which Mephisto would see as a potential tool against the heavens. Hatred's domain in the burning hells is seen as its great capital, where towering cities are built and demons are always scheming, and various factions vie for power, all under the watchful eyes of Mephisto. Perhaps his greatest plan ever conceived, Mephisto manipulated the other evils to cast out him and his brothers. After being imprisoned, he corrupted his jailers and sent them out to free Diablo, so that he may reunite the 3 brothers once again. Mephisto may have fallen at the hands of the heroes, but the events he set into motion cannot be undone. In his mind, Mephisto has already won.
I did as you told me, Tyrael. I found the temple of the Zakarum. In the deepest recesses of the temple, I found a dog gathering. My companion, the Wanderer, Rasha, and a great evil who could only be the Lord of Hatred himself, Mephisto. I heard a voice that, like 1,000 needles in my heart.
My brothers, at long last we stand reunited. The infernal gate has been prepared, and the time of our final victory is at hand. Let the way to hell be opened. And the evil that was once vanquished shall rise anew. Wrapped in the guise of man shall he walk amongst the innocent, and terror shall consume they that dwell upon the earth. The skies shall rain fire, and the seas will become as blood. The righteous shall fall before the wicked, and all creation shall tremble before the burning standards of hell. What I saw then was not meant for mortal eyes. The gate stands ready. Now, my young brother, the time has come to assume your true form. Arise, Diablo, Lord of Terror.
Marius made the journey to Travincal, and following Tyrael's instructions, he ventured into the Temple of Light. There he witnessed a dark gathering of Diablo, Baal, and Mephisto. The Lord of Hatred leading the three of them, they would perform a ritual to open the Infernal Gate. By this time, Aiden can hold back Diablo no longer, and as he falls to the ground, his body would break and reform itself into the monstrous true form of the Lord of Terror. Marius would be frozen in place, claiming that what he saw happen during the ritual was not meant for mortal eyes. From there, Diablo would step through the gate. He would pave the way for the brothers' return to the burning hells, while Baal fled to the northwest. Mephisto remained behind to slow down any adventurers that dared to interfere with their plans. Countless battles were fought over the Worldstone, and so it was that Tyrael ordered the Pandemonium fortress constructed around it. This ephemeral citadel exchanged hands many times over the course of the conflict, and its structure, both physical and metaphysical, altered to reflect its current owners. The fortress bears the markings of both angels and demons through its great halls. When the demon Lilith and the angel Inarius stole the Worldstone, the fortress lay in the hands of the angels. When they realized the stone had been stolen, the angels retreated, and sensing something was amiss, Mephisto pulled back his forces. Baal took the citadel, finding the Eye of Anu was missing, and torturing the few remaining angels yielded no satisfying answers. Now Pandemonium Fortress lies all but abandoned in the hands of the angels, and its current structure reflects their nature. Following the rules of the angels, violence is not permissible within 100 feet of the citadel, providing one of the few safe places in the burning hells. Tyrael's greatest and most trusted lieutenant was Iswal. With the blade of Zurrath in hand, Iswal and Tyrael stood side by side across countless battles, and so Tyrael asked a heavy favor from the party. Iswal's spirit has been captured and placed into a demonic shell to serve the burning hells, and now he wanders the blasted wasteland outside the fortress. Iswal has suffered enough, and now his spirit must be laid to rest. Venturing out into the plains of despair, the fallen angel fights against the party, calling for the adventurers to save themselves. Wielding powers of frost, he attacks the party, but falls before their might, and as the demonic vessel falls apart, Iswal's spirit rises in its place. Contrary to Tyrael's beliefs, Iswal had actually betrayed the high heavens, and sided with the prime evils. He was the one who originally informed them of the Soul Stones and how they could be corrupted, and how the Worldstone could be corrupted through them. As his spirit vanishes, he laughs at the foolish heroes, claiming humanity is already doomed. The Soul Stones acted as anchors for the prime evils, and even if their physical vessels were destroyed, their spirits remained intact. To end their threat, the party would need to find a way to destroy the Soul Stones. Passing through into the City of the Damned, the ground itself is cracking apart and a foul miasma seeps through, allowing glimpses of a fiery presence from down below. A set of dark stairs leads down into the earth, and descending down its steps, the party arrives at a great river of flame. From the unbearable heat, tortured souls rise from the lava, begging for help before they are pulled back under the river's surface. Despite being located within the realm of destruction, there is one place along this river where Hell's weapons are created. Hephasto, the armorer, wielding the Hellforge hammer, guards the Hellforge, and by slaying him and wielding his hammer, Mephisto's soulstone is struck against the great anvil of annihilation, forever shattering it. As Mephisto's soul is sent screaming into the hells, the adventurers turn their attention to stopping the Lord of Terror. Down the river of flames, surrounded by rivers of blood, the great cathedral of the Chaos Sanctuary looms above the party. The sanctuary is split into a central hall and 3 wings, and the entirety of the structure is filled with tortured souls and innumerable skulls. Diablo himself lies somewhere in the sanctuary, and 5 seals conceal him. The seals are guarded by his 3 demonic guardians, the Grand Vizier of Chaos, Lord Desai, and the Infector of Souls. Only after dealing with them and activating the seals does the Lord of Terror himself appear. Diablo would prove to be a fierce opponent and the most difficult battle the party would face, but as the Lord of Terror finally falls, his soul would attempt to escape before being pulled back into the Soulstone. Aiden would finally be allowed his eternal rest as Diablo's Soulstone was brought to the Hellforge. There it would be destroyed, and 2 of the 3 brothers have now been dealt with. Returning triumphantly to Tyrael, he informs the heroes that there is more work to be done. Baal is still somewhere in Sanctuary, and his forces are moving to claim the Worldstone.
Not even death can save you from me.
Diablo, the Lord of Terror, dwells in all fears and nightmares that haunt mortal minds. The most creative of the prime evils, Diablo is a calm, cunning, and patient predator who latches onto his victim's greatest terrors to use as a weapon. To Diablo, conquest is not his goal, but to feed on the terror that comes before the pain. The realm of terror is a twisted and perverse living nightmare. Few demons can withstand the torment for long, and so it remains as the least populated of the hells, filled with only visions of madness and horror. Lonely and desolate, even a glimpse of his realm fills one with unending despair. So long as mankind fears what lies in the shadows, Diablo will remain as the most powerful of all the evils. Even if Sanctuary is now freed of his torment, it has been left forever scarred by his influence. The world will never be the same now that mortal hearts have tasted true terror.
I heard later that he was defeated. The Worldstone were destroyed in Hellforge. All except one.
I failed, Tyrael. I couldn't do as you asked. I couldn't enter that gate. Forgive me, Tyrael. Forgive me.
Marius, give me the stone, and all is forgiven. Give it to me, Marius.
Take it. Take it, take it. I'm glad this is finally over, Tyrael. Look what the stone has done to me.
You haven't failed, old man. You've done exactly as you were meant to do. However, I am not the Archangel Tyrael.
There. No.
You have done well, Marius. Now I think you shall have your reward.
What have I done to deserve it?
Only later did Marius hear that Diablo was defeated and that the Soul Stones were all destroyed, all except for one. Breaking down in tears in front of Tyrael, he sobs that he failed in his mission and he could not find the courage to walk through the infernal gate. Tyrael stands and walks toward him as Marius begs for his forgiveness. Tyrael promises Marius that if he hands over the stone, then all is forgiven. From beneath his shirt, Marius pulls out the yellow soul stone and begs for Tyrael to take it. He fled all the way to Westmarch, and the yellow soul stone ate away at his body. Handing it over to Tyrael, he expresses relief that this whole nightmare is finally over. His relief is short-lived as the hooded stranger reveals that he's not Tyrael as Marius believed, but instead the hideous form of Baal. Realizing what he has just done, Marius breaks down, asking what he could have possibly done to deserve this, as Baal silences the old man forever. Only a dark cloaked figure would leave the asylum alive that night, heading north, as the rest of the building and its inhabitants burned to the ground.
Bail! The gates of Sescheron have stood for eons beyond remembrance, and you shall not breach them now. Remove your foul demons from our lands. We stand on the side of light. You shall not be allowed to reach Mount Arreat, and that which you seek will not be yours.
I shall take your position into consideration. Well, it seems your terms are not acceptable.
As Baal traveled across the land, he would slaughter and destroy entire villages and transform their helpless citizens into a great demonic army. With each vile act he committed, the strength of the Yellow Soulstone increased, and so too did Baal's power. His gaze was fixed firmly to the north, where hidden away in Arreat, the Worldstone began to thrum with a corrupting energy. By the time he reached the sacred mountain, Baal's army had swelled into thousands of ravenous warriors, and the first roadblock on their path would be the great fortress city of Sescheron. For countless generations, the barbarians guarded its gates, convinced the city could not and would not fall. They would be proven wrong as Baal unleashed his army upon them, and for all the ferocity and fire the barbarians fought with, Sescheron would fall. Carried on the backs of his great army, Baal surveyed the destruction he had wrought upon the city and eagerly looked towards the fortress of Harrowing, and once the Worldstone lay in his grasp, he would remake Sanctuary into a wasteland stained in blood. The barbarians were driven back to Arreat's peak, where they dug in their heels at Harrowing. The fortress was all that lay between Baal and the summit, and they would not let him pass. The first signs came when they lost communication with Sescheron, and when the black smoke rose over the horizon, they knew destruction had come for them. Too prideful, the Elder Council refused to ask the nearby kingdoms for aid, and the children of Bul-Kathos would stand alone. Ost of the Elder Council proposed a strategy to prevent any demon, including Baal, from reaching the summit, but it would be risky. They performed an ancient druidic ritual to attempt to place a ward over the summit, but the spell failed, and of the 7 council members, only Nilithak survived. Qualkek's arrogance would cost them dearly. Even as Baal's forces encircled the fortress, Qualkek tried and failed time after time to break through their army. Now food and medicine are in dwindling supply, and it won't be long until Baal breached the keep's walls and humanity would be lost. As Baal makes his way up the mountain, he has left behind a fearsome taskmaster to continue assaulting the fortress. The one leading the constant siege is a brutal demon named Shenk the Overseer, who lashes his own minions into a vicious frenzy. He lies out in the bloody foothills surrounded by hellish catapults. The party will need to fight through the monstrous army, slaughtering everything in their way as they carve a path towards Shenk. The Overseer has not left himself defenseless, as he is surrounded by fanatical minions which Shenk whips into serving as living bombs and throwing themselves at the party. They would be little more than a distraction, and Shenk is swiftly dealt with, and the catapults destroyed. Returning to Harrowing, Larzuk is surprised to see the party survived, commenting he underestimated them. Having proven their worth, the party sees what else they can do to aid the barbarians. Not all who were sent to battle were killed. Many were taken as prisoners by the demons, and Qualkek cannot bear to think of what they are doing to his men. As the party ascends the mountain, they are tasked with freeing any survivors they can find and send them back to Harrowing. While the barbarians' supplies have been dwindling over the course of the siege, the demons remain as strong as ever, and the source of their meals appears to be the corpses of the fallen barbarians that were slain defending their homes. What the demons planned on doing with the prisoners is uncertain, whether they were to be bent into new demonic warriors, broken into helpless slaves, or perhaps more disturbingly they were kept around as fresh meat waiting to be slaughtered. Whatever the demons' intentions, the prisoners were all released from their cages and managed to safely make their way back to the fortress walls. Despite the harrowing ordeal, they are eager to rejoin the fight, and Qualkek offers their services as mercenaries to aid in chasing Baal. The daughter of the late Elder Ost has gone missing, and the healer Mala might have some useful information. According to her, Anya and the Elder Nilithak argued over the death of her father. The following day, she disappeared, and while Nilithak has his own story, Mala does not believe him. Asking the last Elder what happened, Nilithak will claim Anya ran off to search for her mother and brother after she saw them in a vision. Nilithak warned Anya not to go, but she was convinced that they could be saved and ran off in the middle of the night. Now, nobody has heard from her, and Nilithak is convinced she must be dead by now. Venturing into the frozen caves to confirm her fate, the heroes find Anya frozen beneath the ice, guarded by a behemoth named Frozenstein. Breaking free of the ice, she tells the party that Nilithak was the one that trapped her, and that he has betrayed Arreat. When they return to Harrowing, Nilithak has already fled from the fortress, but he would not escape from justice. When the spell intended to protect the Worldstone from Baal failed, Nilithak was the only survivor. In the aftermath of its failure, Nilithak gave up hope of standing against the Lord of Destruction, and instead willingly gave up information to Baal, including a sacred artifact known as the Relic of the Ancients. Ancient barbarian spirits protected the Worldstone, but the artifact would allow Baal to enter the chamber unchallenged. Anya opens up a portal leading to Nilithak's temple, where the Elder has fled to now that his actions have been uncovered. The temple is divided into 3 sections named the Halls of Anguish, Halls of Pain, and the Halls of Vot. At its lowest floors, Nilithak awaits, summoning minions and blowing up corpses to slow down the party, but when his magic fails him, he is quickly struck down. As he is slain, Nilithak is not granted the peace of death. His flesh is stripped from his bones, and as lightning sparks from the ground at his feet, Nilithak is dragged into the burning hells to suffer for all eternity. Baal is already far ahead, and with the other distractions dealt with, the party makes their way to Arreat's summit. Past the frozen tundra, up the Ancient's Way, the altar of the heavens lies at the top of the mountain, where 3 statues of ancient barbarian heroes sit. Each is possessed by the ancient hero, whose spirits chose to reside in sanctuary to forever be bound to their duty. Korlik the Protector, Talik the Defender, and Madok the Guardian were all once among the ranks of the Nephilim, the first humans born from the union of angels and demons, and held immense power. Their strength would serve as a test for anyone that wished to enter the chamber of the Worldstone, and one that must be accomplished without fleeing. The party accepts the Ancients' challenge, breaking each one apart and passing their test. As a reward, the Ancients impart their strength and wisdom on the heroes, warning them that Baal has already made his way into the mountain's interior. With little time left to lose, they race inside to search for the chamber. Baal's magic is keeping Tyrael at bay, and so it is up to the mortal heroes to stop him. If Baal succeeds in corrupting the Worldstone, he will be able to shatter the boundary between realities, and summon the full might of hell into Sanctuary. Worldstone Keep has been overrun by hellish lords and vile succubi, and the fight through its halls is a blur of fire and steel. When at last they reach Baal, he is atop a great throne from which he will command all of Hell's armies. Before the party can confront him, Baal begins summoning waves of powerful minions to deal with them, and fleeing into the far chamber. Cutting through Baal's servants and following him through the doorway, the party is met with the sight of the Worldstone. Assaulting the party with frost, illusions, and twisting appendages, Baal attempts to fend off the party, and with the combined might of the demon's power and the sorcery of Rasha, Baal would prove to be a formidable opponent. But when at last he falls, the party can breathe a sigh of relief. The last of the 3 brothers has finally been vanquished.
My brothers will not have died in vain.
The last of the 3 primevals, Baal is just as cunning and nefarious as his siblings. All that he does is to further his aims of witnessing war and destruction to fuel a hunger for annihilation that can never be satisfied. However, that does not mean he is above using strategy and manipulation to further his goals. The Realm of Destruction is Bale's personal playground where there is an odd duality to his character. Here, he creates great armies of demons and erects impenetrable fortresses among the mightiest structures in all of Hell, only to watch them fall into ruin. It is also within his domain that the Hellforge is located, where Hell's greatest weapons are created. The siege he launched against Mount Arreat was merely a taste of what Bale would have unleashed upon Sanctuary, but at his moment of triumph, Bale fell to the hands of the party. But even with his dying breath, he laughs at us all. Unbeknownst to the heroes, they were already too late to stop the brothers' plans. By the time the party had managed to reach the Worldstone, Bale had already corrupted it with his demonic spirit. Given enough time, the Worldstone's powers will drain away and the boundary between realms will become thin, allowing Hell to freely enter into the lands of Sanctuary. The eternal conflict between heaven and hell had perverted the Eye of Anu, and now it would bring the doom of the mortal world. Tyrael opened a portal for the heroes to safely escape from and turned his gaze to the Worldstone. He knew not to what extent the consequences would be, but Tyrael knew that the Worldstone would need to be destroyed before it caused further damage. Throwing his blessed blade Eldruin at its form, the Worldstone shattered in a blinding explosion. The destruction wrought was devastating, as Mount Arreat was reduced to a smoldering crater and Tyrael's physical form was completely vaporized in the event. With their homeland destroyed and their sacred charge failed, the barbarian tribes would leave Arreat in disgrace. They would settle across the lands of Sanctuary seeking atonement for their failures. Some would continue to fight back against the forces of hell, while others would regress into savage cannibals. The Worldstone once protected Sanctuary and veiled its location, but now both heaven and hell could look upon it freely, and with the Worldstone's protection gone, Sanctuary was now open for demonic or angelic invasion. The shards of the Worldstone also scattered around Sanctuary, and their immense power gave rise to covens and dark forces that wished to further their own ends. All of this paled in comparison to perhaps the greatest effect the Worldstone's destruction had on the people of Sanctuary. Humanity held an immense power within them, born of both angel and demon, but this power was sealed away within the Eye of Anu. Now this power was free to return to mankind. After the player has completed the game, they can combine Wirt's Leg from the ruins of Tristram with a Tome of Town portal in the Herodric Cube, and a red portal will open up before them. Through this portal, the most hideous and vile demons in the game can be challenged. Towering hell bovines wielding large axes roam the countryside, and leading them all is the infamous Cow King. After the rumors of a secret cow level in the first Diablo, Blizzard decided to lean into the joke when developing Diablo 2 and actually add it into the game. Blizzard actually released screenshots of the level to show off to players, but these images were released on April Fool's Day, leading to confusion of their validity. There isn't too much to say about this area other than what I already said in my last video about the cow level in my Diablo 1 series, but I still felt like giving it a mention. This is the original iteration of the secret cow level, then that is something no other game will be able to claim to have.